Hi there! Today I'm going to show you how to make your own DIY probiotic water at home. Give this video a thumbs up, and I've got tips and troubleshooting advice at the end, so be sure to stick around. Okay, let's get started. You're going to need a sanitized glass jar filled with purified water. Don't use city tap water. And then you're going to add some honey. Personally, I like to use buckwheat honey. I love the dark rich color and the unique flavor. Using traditional golden raw honey works equally as well. So you're going to take about half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon and drop it in the water there. This is going to be the food for the probiotics to feed on during the fermentation process. Next, I'm going to take one of my probiotic capsules and sprinkle about half of it in. Put your lid on the jar, give it a good little shake, and voila, you're done. It was really that simple. Now what you're going to do is set it in the windowsill for about 3 days. And I have never had a problem with the fermentation process sitting in the windowsill, exposed to light and next to the window at all, even in the winter time. Now this is the fermentation in process. You can see the bubbles rising up to the top and the foam is kind of developing. That's all perfectly normal. That means you've got a really healthy fermentation going on. However, it will not be carbonated. It's nothing like kombucha at all. This is my probiotic water, maybe around day 4. Sometimes it sits a little longer in the window than only 3 days. And as you can see, it's developing this reddish brown floaty stuff on the top. That is the waste product of the probiotics. Now I know that sounds a little bit gross, but that means you've got really active, healthy probiotics reproducing, fermenting like crazy, and feeding off of the honey that you put into the water. So again, good sign. However, you may not want to drink the brown floaties now that you know what they are. So when you're ready for your probiotic water, get a new clean glass jar and the mesh strainer and just pour the water right through. This is going to strain out all the floaties. And now you're good, ready to go. Put the lid on and you're set. Now I'm going to show you how to make the starter. When you get towards the end of your probiotic water, save the last quarter or so. Add fresh, new purified water, and you're going to repeat adding honey. The probiotics in the starter will need more fuel to continue fermenting and reproducing. That's about half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon, same as before. And then put the lid on, give it a good shake, make sure the lid's on tight and you don't spill like I just did, and you're ready to go. Put it in your windowsill for about 3 days. Here's some tips and troubleshooting so that you can make probiotic water perfect the first time. And if you're enjoying this video so far, just take a second to hit that subscribe button so you can receive more tips, inspiration, and recipes regarding clean food living. Tip number 1. Instead of drinking it straight, add it in small quantities to your green juice, your green smoothie, your fruit smoothie, or even add a tablespoon or 2 to your bottled water that you take with you to the gym or to work. Tip number 2. If anything other than the brown floaties form, such as mold, that's black, that's gray, that's fuzzy, pink, green, whatever, throw out that probiotic water. Do not use it, do not drink it. Or if the probiotic water has a really foul stench to it, again, don't drink it. The fermentation of probiotic water should taste kind of lightly sweet. It's hard to describe what fermentation tastes like, but same with the smell. It should just be a very light, sweet, semi-sweet fermentation smell. It should not be a strong, offensive, foul odor. If that's the case, chuck it and start over from fresh. Don't even try to save the starter to it. Troubleshooting. Question number 1. What if there's no foam or brown floaties forming at the top of my probiotic water? Okay, have no fear. This doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't ferment. So what you do is just open it up and take a smell. If it has that semi-sweet, light fermentation smell, then you're good to go. I've had many, many, many batches that didn't necessarily foam or form the brown floaties on it, but it still had that sweet fermentation smell. So I knew that it had fermented. Now, if you open up the lid and you smell it and it smells just like plain water, then that probably means it did not ferment. So here's what you do. You add more probiotic from the capsule to it, add a little bit more honey to it, maybe quarter to a half a teaspoon, because sometimes if you don't add enough sugar, it's not enough to sustain or feed the probiotics to replicate massively into a strong, hearty fermentation. And then lastly, put it in a warmer place. It might be that it's too cool of where it is. For instance, my house stays at a steady 70 degrees all year round. In the winter, we have a wood stove that heats the house to a nice temperature, and then in the summer we have covered porches and such, and shades that and fans that keep the house cool. So my house is pretty steady at the 70-degree mark, and I've never had any problems with the fermentation temperature. But if you're finding that case of you're opening it after 3 days, you're smelling it and it just smells like plain water, it tastes like plain water with just a little bit of honey maybe, but it's absent that fermentation smell and taste, then do those things. Add the probiotic capsule a little more, add a little more honey, and put it into a warmer environment and see what happens then. Troubleshooting. Troubleshooting number 2. What if my probiotic water sits longer than 3 days in the windowsill? What if it sits for 5 days or 10 days? That's perfectly fine. All that's going to do is just increase the level of fermentation and make the probiotic formula stronger. This is going to increase the smell of the fermentation and increase the taste of the fermentation. Again though, no harm. I've had my I've had my probiotic water sit in the windowsill for 7 or 8 days, like if I've gone on vacation or I just didn't get to it, and it's no problem at all. So don't worry. And if it's in the window a shorter amount of time, let's say you only had it there for 1 or 2 days before needing to drink it because you ran out, again, no problem. It's just the opposite of the other. The fermentation will be lighter rather than heavier. And then just make sure that the further jars coming into rotation have more time or have less time. You can even find what your perfect taste is if you find that you prefer the taste of fermentation after 3 days or 5 days, or maybe it is only 1 day. It's not going to give you a super strong probiotic charge like the purpose of probiotic water is, but again, just meet your own taste and what you like and what works for you. And lastly, just a reminder, temperature with fermentation does make a difference. If it's colder, it's going to ferment much slower. If it's too cold, if the jar is obviously sitting outside in the winter, it's not going to ferment at all. And if it's too warm, it's just going to cause the fermentation to happen more rapidly. So let's say in August, you've got your probiotic water sitting on the front porch in the sun. Well, the lid could blow off by the end of the day because it's just too hot and the gases building up are just too strong. So that's personally never happened to me. But I've always used common sense, and I don't leave it in the sun or leave it outside in the winter either way. So for me, leaving it in the windowsill really works. And just to add a note to the windowsill, window light, sunlight, any kind of light is not needed for fermentation. So if you need to move your probiotic water to a warmer place or a cooler place, it's okay if it's in the closet, it's okay if it's on your desk or somewhere else away from the window. That's perfectly fine. That's not going to affect the fermentation. What affects the fermentation the most is temperature, adding the probiotic capsule, adding the honey so that it feeds. I've actually noticed that when I add less honey, such as half a teaspoon versus a full teaspoon, I actually do notice a difference in the fermentation. It's much stronger with the full teaspoon of honey after the 3 days than with the half. So if you're worried about sugar intake with the honey, have no fear, because The probiotic cultures will actually eat up the sugars of the honey, leaving behind the minerals for your body, but it's actually very low glycemic, so don't worry about the honey. All right, well, hope this helps. Enjoy your probiotic water. For me, I love it, not only with flavor and giving my dressings and my smoothies a probiotic boost, but also I love that it saves me money. Have a great day. Bye. If you are interested in making my creamy zucchini dressing that has the probiotic water in it, click the video right here. I post videos weekly, so become a subscriber and see more videos on tips, inspiration, and recipes for clean food living. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.